the real reason that we thought, well, we'll just get Jamey to come and fill in for John this week. We thought, well, that'd be a good time for us to just talk about TupeloCon. We've mentioned already a couple of times that we're going to be at TupeloCon, and we're going to try to do an episode from there that day, and we're going to be speaking on a panel, and we're looking forward to that. But there's so much more to say about it than just, oh, we're going to be there, and there's going to be some cool things there. So I thought, let's just take this episode, and we're just going to go through. I thought what we could do tonight is to look through like the lineup of the guests you have
Sounds
scheduled, and then we might look also at those activities, because there were some cool special activities.
Oh yeah.
And we can let you talk about a little bit. Before we get into that, I thought we'd just look at the philosophy and the growth of Tupelo-Con.
Mm-hmm.
You were telling me the other day, this is more like a fan con.
Right.
And some of the differences in some of the more corporate cons as opposed to what kind of convention this is.
Right.
I've only been to a few conventions. I haven't been to, enough to say, oh, I know all about the conventions, or I'm a connoisseur of it or anything. But I know you've probably done some, not just research, but you visited some other conventions and trying to see how you could, best run TupeloCon.
Right.
So just tell us a little bit about like your philosophy of how you're trying to do things and how TupeloCon has grown and is looking to continue to grow.
Right. Let's see. TupeloCon is a local run fan convention versus, like you were saying, the corporate cons and the other types of conventions that are out there. We are a family con. We have activities for the kids that come by. We have activities for the adults, the people who have been geeking out since the 1940s, coming out here. And the guys who literally just started watching The Walking Dead a year ago.
Right.
So we try to focus on being open for everybody. We are a multi-genre convention, and we try to focus on everything within geek culture, which geek culture is a little flexible, because, we're going to have wrestling and wrestling type people that are there. And some people may or may not consider wrestling to be part of geekdom or geek culture. It's kind of on the fence, like kind of like a missing link, but I do.
Somewhere between sports and geeks.
Right. It's the middle ground between jocks and nerds.
Right.
And you have these people dressing up and acting like villains and superheroes, going together and beating each other up, which is the same thing that we watch Dragon Ball Z for and all that.
Right. Except it's a sport.
Right. Except you got a bunch of muscular guys that were probably bullying kids like me in high school. Okay, I say that, but a lot of wrestlers are very, very geeky.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, they may have gotten bullied, and that's what motivated them to hit up the gym and
go Super Saiyan on everybody.
Right. CM Punk he'd holler, it's clobbering time every day before he would get up on the stage. Fantastic Four reference right there. There's a female wrestler right now that her costume design is inspired by Chandra, who is from Magic the Gathering. It's one of the Planeswalker characters from that show. So, they're definitely geeks in wrestling as well as geeks who love wrestling. Yeah. So we hit up everything.
That's one of the things that interested me about the con. When it was still called Tupelo Comic Con, I was kind of interested in it, but I've read some comics, but I'm not completely into comics like somebody that would go to Comic-Con, say San Diego or something.
Right.
And when it was Tupelo Comic Con, I was interested in it, but I'm not, like I said, I'm not just obsessed with comic books like some people are. So when I saw it was TupeloCon, even that name change piqued my interest. And I was like, well, what all is involved in this?
Right.
And because I'm more games and I will I will get into comic books or autographs from artists and
Right.
authors and things like that. I mean, it's cool to meet people that have done that, but I'm way more into video games. And
Right.
I honestly, like, I'll probably never go to E3 because it's on streaming, and I can just watch
Right.
I can watch the conferences from the comfort of my home, and it's just a lot less hassle, a lot cheaper, and a lot less sweaty. So
No
but,
con funk.
yeah, but I'm looking forward to Tupelo-Con just to see what all is there.
Yeah. Oh, I just lost my train of thought. I was right there. Where was I? Oh yeah, the name change from Tupelo Comic-Con to Tupelo-Con. That was actually one of the thought processes when the first time somebody brought the idea up for dropping the word comic from the event, because somebody had been bringing it up all the way through our second year. Oh, y'all should drop the word comic. You just do Tupelo-Con. People are calling it Tupelo-Con anyways. And my big argument for it was, well, Comic-Cons aren't just about comics anymore.
Right.
San Diego Comic-Con has celebrities from everything.
It's almost more movies than comics now.
Right. It's all multi-genre.
Yeah.
But the term Comic-Con is what people know. And then, I mean, another big reason why we dropped it is because San Diego Comic-Con was in a big lawsuit with Salt Lake City Comic-Con saying, hey, you need to do this. And so when circumstances came and it was like, you know what? We can just make this easy. We'll drop the word comic. There were some people that were complaining that we didn't have a ton of comic book stuff because we were trying to stay pretty balanced amongst everything. And so we'll drop the word comics so that those people don't get confused thinking that it's all about comics. Everybody can know it's about everything because Tupelo-Con isn't just about comics anymore.
Yeah, and that, like I said, that was a good move because that's kind of what piqued my interest about it. Is like, well, I've been wanting to start up a gaming convention for a long time because you have so many things out west and the northwest and even like out southwest, northeast. You seem to have all these different PAX, conventions and even E3 and things like that. But around here, I guess maybe Nashville, they've got a grand old gaming expo that I kind of like to see. But even that's like 5 hours away.
Right.
And there's nothing right here. And when I saw this, I was just so glad that we had something here locally that was on this level,
Right.
More than just like, oh, let's go to the flea market this weekend.
Right.
Well, there's going to be a lot of people at the Tupelo-Con. I almost said Comic-Con. But I was looking through the lineup, and some of these people are, I guess, what's the best way to say it? It's like, it's people that, like, you'd say, well, who is that? But then when you read their career accomplishments, you're like, oh, yeah.
Right.
Like, you may not recognize the name Karen Ashley just, like, right off the tip of the tongue. But when you look at some of the things she's done, you're like, oh, that's who that is. Right.
Well, the big thing that it was with me with going through the bios, especially last year, was finding out what these people have done other than the one or two shows that you know them for.
Right.
Like with last year, we had Walter Jones, who was the original Black Power Ranger. And I didn't know that he was a professional dancer. And he has won international dancing competitions.
Wow.
He's done some really, really impressive things for his own career beyond just Power Rangers that I watched him growing up on.
Right.
And so you'll read through these things and you'll find out that they're on other movies that you know, but you didn't know that was them.
Yeah.
Or all those kinds of fun things.
I know, like Karen Ashley, I was looking through her bio there, and I went to YouTube and watched some of her group's videos, and I was like, that is so 90s. The music and the video itself is just like, that's the epitome of everything 90s.
Right.
The girl group. And so that was cool. And some of these voice actors, they're kind of already in a spot where they're not going to be recognizable unless you know what they do or you look into that. And voice actors for games are the same ways. Like there's some very popular voice actors that you would never even know who they were just seeing them, because you've just seen the show or played the game that they're in.
Right.
If they talk to you, you'd be like, wait a minute, you sound like...
Well, when I first started looking for special guests and all that, especially with voice actors, I would look up a popular character with a voice, and I'd have to look up who the voice actor was. And then when I would look the person up and I'd look through everything else that they've done, I'd find out that they're some of my favorite characters from 8 or 9 different shows, but because their voices are changing from character to character, I never would have put the two together.
Yeah, and the guy that voices Bender in Futurama is also the voice of Marcus Phoenix in the Gears of War games. And when I found that out, I was like, it sounds completely different. But then you look into the person, and like you're talking about, you begin to look into all the things they do, and you realize this guy's got like 50 voices that he does.
Right.
It's not just him talking. And that's a neat thing with all of these, is when you begin to look in, like you were saying, you get to look into all the things they've been involved in. They've been more accomplished than you might have thought.
Oh yeah.
And Jeremy London, I saw that on the list, and I was like, wait a minute, that's the same guy? Because I was a big fan of the Mallrats back in the day. And then after some years passed and he was on, I guess it was Seventh Heaven. My wife used to love that show, and we'd sit down and watch it when it was on. And I remember him being on there, and I told her the other night, did you realize Jeremy London is going to be at Tupelo-Con? But that's a pretty big.
Well, I do have some bad news with Jeremy London. There was some home drama, and unfortunately, he won't be able to come to Tupelo-Con this year, and we still have to get that announced. That was something that we got hammered out recently. I've been talking to. I know. But we are bringing in another guest that is coming to the U.S. from Australia.
Now, you were telling me about that, but you didn't. I don't think you told me who it was.
Her name is Nell Campbell, and she's from the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Wow.
And so she was the redheaded woman from the Rocky Rocky Horror Picture Show, and she'll actually be coming to Tupelo-Con.
I was thinking about that today. A lot of these people that make appearances at all these conventions, they almost have like a second career now. Like they may have been in movies or different avenue or areas of the entertainment industry years ago, and then now they've got like a second wind going to all these conventions where people, like you said, people that have been geeks for 40 years or more, and they know, well, that's like Jeremy London. Like I'm sure that most people that are teenagers or college age today, they probably don't know much about Jeremy London, but or have ever seen Mallrats and know the greatness of that. But it's little things like that. You're like, oh, I know who that is. And it's like even the Power Rangers. Like I guess I was a little older when they came out. So my brother was big on the Power Rangers. I never watched them much, but I knew what the show was.
Right.
And so that interests me, and just seeing people that were involved in some of those things. But looking through the names that you have, looking forward to coming to the Comic-Con. There I go again, Comic-Con. I've been calling it Tupelo-Con perfectly for like a month, and now because we talked about Comic-Con, I can't get it out of my head.
Right.
But I was looking at Felix Silla. Is that how you say his name?
Yeah, Felix Sela.
Yeah, and he's one of those that, like, there are a lot of people my age or a little older that probably know exactly, reading through this bio, they're like, oh yeah, I remember that, or this or that.
Right.
And there's a lot of younger kids that they don't recognize him as a celebrity, but if they get the chance to go back and see some of these movies and shows, I think that's a good thing for keeping those older things going.
Oh yeah. I'm actually really excited about Felix. I met him at DragonCon this year. He's a really awesome guy. He has a stand-up reputation amongst the conventions that he's gone to, and I'm really excited to bring him in. He's one of the people that we brought in specifically because it does target the older audience,
right?
And that's part of we try to target everybody. We had the 1970s Captain America. We brought in Mira from Babylon 5 last year. And so we try to bring in both current, some older stuff. And I mean, this is some of the stuff that I would still be able to recognize.
Right.
And so some people my age, my parents are very excited about meeting him because he was Twiggy from Buck Rogers.
Oh,
I didn't watch Buck Rogers, but I know Cousin It and I know the Ewoks from the original Star Wars trilogy. And so I'm excited to meet him. I've heard great things about him.
And I've gone through and watched a couple of interviews on YouTube with him, and he's interesting just to listen to him tell about what it was like to be on the sets of those shows and movies, and just listening to him talk about his experience and the different stunt works and things that he's done.
Oh yeah. My dad was telling me about an interview because my dad did the same thing. When I get a special guest, he'll go and he'll try to hunt down some interviews and he'll look up all the things that they've done. And my dad in particular had a story from one of his interviews that he loved, and it was oh my gosh, my mind's going blank. I know the name of this guy. Oh my gosh, the director from It. Oh my gosh, it'll come back to me.
There isn't like Stephen King?
No, not It. E.T.
Oh. Should I know Spielberg?
Yes. And so from one of the interviews, he came up, or Spielberg came up to him and was like, if you were that much taller, you could be E.T. It's like, I'd make you E.T. But I've heard he's a funny guy. I'm looking forward to meeting him.
One of the only conventions I've ever been to was AdventureCon in Knoxville, and it was a little bit of the same. In other words, it wasn't just comics, but it was mostly comics and comic artists, and it's amazing to like. I realize there's some things that I'm good at. Drawing is not one of them.
Yeah. And
I can sketch and doodle a little bit here and there, but even people that I know that say, "Oh yes, I'm really good at drawing things or sketching things," I don't think you understand the difference in the talent level of an actual comic artist, professional artist, and then somebody that just dabbles in it.
Right.
And it's the same thing with like professional sports. Like somebody you think you're good at golf, you're nothing at golf if you've ever seen a professional golfer, right?
Right.
Well, the artistry is the same way. And every guy that I met at that convention that year who was either a working comic book artist or someone who was just starting out, just trying to get their name out there, they were all like just on the spot. Can draw pretty much whatever you can think of or whatever they can think of. I think that's the difference. Like I can draw something if I'm looking straight at something and I'm really meticulous about, okay, I'm trying to get every angle just right, and maybe I'll have to race a little bit and to redo that little section to try and get it just right. And I can spend a couple of hours on one little picture or sketch, and it may look like it was at least drawn with your correct hand, like you didn't try to draw it with your foot or something.
Right.
But these guys, there's none of that. Their hand just is so fluid when they go to draw something, and it's almost like they're just snapping a picture.
Right.
And they're just so smooth and fluid on that paper. And then when they're through waving their hand, it's a picture. And it's not just, it's so detailed, and it's either realistic or it's stylized in their style.
Right.
But you can tell that that's literally all they do is draw things. And they're on a whole other level. So it's amazing just to meet some of those people, even if you're not familiar with their work or they haven't worked on a comic that you've been a fan of, just to meet an actual professional artist.
Right.
And watch them stand there at the table and watch them work. It's something to see.
Right. And Sam Flagel is he's one of the artists that we're bringing down. He's on the page right now. He is a professional artist who has done work with Warhammer 40K and the other GW things. His art is in the rule books, part of the concept design for characters, that kind of stuff. And he's actually a return guest. We had him our first year for the con. He lives up in Tennessee, and we were bringing him back along with a couple of our other special guests from the first year. Since we were much smaller our first year.
Right.
And so we're bringing them back to get the opportunity for the fans to meet the people that they may have missed that first year.
Yeah, that's pretty cool as you grow and you begin to get more people in, then you can invite some of these people back. So that's a good idea. That's kind of like what Nintendo's doing with the Switch.
Right.
They're bringing
right.
these games back because nobody played them on the Wii U. And so now they're re-releasing like Mario Kart and things like that on the Switch because like 5 people had a Wii U and played them. So, but yeah, that's the a perfect philosophy is that they're going to have an opportunity to have more people get to meet them and see them. I tried to go through the other night and just kind of look through all the people on the list, and the girl on The Walking Dead. I haven't watched much. I watched a few episodes of The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
I really like it. I just haven't had time to really keep up to the latest season.
Right.
But
yeah.
I think I did make it to the 3rd season where she was on, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was pretty big. She was a pretty key point for that particular season, because that was the governor's motivation for a lot of things he was doing was for his daughter, even though his daughter had already been turned into a zombie. And Michonne killing the governor's daughter, or slaying the zombie,
right,
was one of the big things that kind of cracked him a little further than he already was, and pushed him a little further. I think it kind of added to the obsession that he had with their particular group. But we'll have her, and we'll also have other Walking Dead zombies. I don't think he's on the website right now. Moses Mosley, who was Michonne's pet zombie. One of the zombies that she carried around in the chains. Yeah. Because one of them was her boyfriend, and then the other one was her brother. Okay. And we're bringing the boyfriend zombie. Yeah. And so he'll be there as well.
That's pretty cool. And that's like you were saying. You got, look at these two back to back. You've got Kylie from The Walking Dead, and then Felix, and that's the range of the guests right there in one screenshot. So that's it's neat to have that vast a reach and that different types of fandoms. They're both shows, but you've got vastly different people who are going to be interested in meeting Felix or meeting Kylie.
Right.
Jason Narvey.
Yep, Jason Narvey was from Power Rangers. It's actually the 25th Power Ranger anniversary, which is why we're bringing in so many Power Ranger characters.
So you couldn't get the whole team together for this?
Well, that's kind of nigh impossible. The original group of Power Rangers, the original 5 Power Rangers, one, it's impossible because the original Power Ranger, a yellow Power Ranger, passed away in a car accident.
Yeah, I'd heard that.
And the other 5 original Power Rangers actually have not been in the same place in the same time with the exception of the new Power Rangers movie that came out. That was
Yeah.
the first time they were all back together.
So they kind of had their fill of each other.
Well, I mean, one of them in particular
Yeah.
refuses to appear with anybody except for Jason David Frank.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what the deal with that is. I think it was because she tried to continue her acting career and other things after that.
Yeah.
And she was trying to escape from Power Rangers because none of them thought it was going to be as big as it was. And
that's kind of the double-edged sword of anything
Right.
like that. Is like it's nice to have it become that popular, but
Right.
then you're always a Power Ranger.
right. She used to not go to conventions, period. And she started coming to conventions more here recently. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe she's starting to embrace the Power Ranger side a little bit. Now
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is
So-
it you gotta own that. I mean,
right.
you know, if everybody knows you as a Power Ranger, just be a Power Ranger.
Right. But I think she moved to Canada and she did an acting career in Canada.
Yeah.
She has a singing career in Canada and all that kind of stuff. She has a respectable career in other fields. But she was trying to promote a movie that she was doing, and so she started doing her Power Ranger stuff to reach the Power Ranger fans to let them
Right.
know, hey, I'm doing a
Yeah.
movie. And so we'll see. Maybe she's starting to embrace it.
Well, and that's, I mean, like I said, you take whatever, I don't want to say, I don't know if it's an advantage or whatever you want to call that, but yeah, use what you got. I mean,
Oh yeah, utilize your
springboard
resources.
off of that into something else. But a lot of these people, now the voice actors are a little different because they're already all over the place in various genre stuff and all that.
Right.
But any of the live action actors, it's interesting. Like I said, like you see the 2 or 3 things you might know them for, and then you
Right.
begin to read the whole bio, and you're like, well, they're involved in a lot of things.
Right.
Tiffany Grant, I noticed she's Full Metal Alchemist, and of course there's a lot of mentions here, a lot of shows.
Oh yeah, she's done hundreds of shows.
1,700 plus TV episodes. That's
Yes, she's done a lot of shows. She's also a returning special guest.
Yeah.
She was a guest from our first year. She is Asuka from Evangelion, which is her. It's kind of her key role from the past. It's an older anime from when my generation was still pretty young when it was coming up. She's also done characters from One Piece. She was Nami's sister from that. She's from Full Metal Alchemist. She was Mara from that. She's done a little bit of everything. She also works with Funimation right now, so she actually does screenwriting and all that for animes. She's responsible for bringing a lot of the animes that you know and like to America.
That's what I was going to ask. A lot of these voice actors, they get involved in the translation process or bringing, say, like Dragon Ball Z or now Dragon Ball Super, I
Right.
guess is the latest one. Bringing that, you have the Japanese episodes that are, of course, released earlier, but then you have a whole team of people just making the transition
Right.
to English.
And that's one of the things that Tiffany Grant's been focusing on. The first year, she actually did a video commentary for one of the shows that was getting really popular that she was bringing over called Parasite. Oh my gosh, it's an amazing anime. And Tiffany Grant's going to be doing another anime this year. I don't know what the anime is. It's going to be a different show, but she's going to be doing another commentary for a show that she helped bring to the U.S.
Yeah, that's cool. That's another one of those things that just the more you dig into somebody's bio, the more you learn about what all they're involved in.
Mm-hmm.
Here's some of the wrestling you were talking about. The wrestling. Josh TKO Turner.
Right, Josh TKO Turner. We originally brought him in as a Walking Dead special guest. He's one of the saviors that has worked with Negan and everything on the set for that. And we brought him in, and we found out he was a pro wrestler, and we're having wrestling at the convention. We'll actually have live wrestling. We'll get back to that later.
Yeah.
And so we're also bringing him in as a wrestling special guest because he's going to be getting involved in wrestling at the con as well.
Oh.
And so he was kind of a dual functioning special guest coming in.
Yeah, that lined up perfectly. His two specialties there just lined right up, didn't they? Celebrity guest. Now here's another Power Rangers guest, right?
Yes.
David Fielding.
Yes. David Fielding is our third and final Power Ranger special guest. He is the boss man himself. Zordon he's been the leader. He's the big floating head in the tube, as my dad would call him. And he's the boss. He brought everybody together. And we will have him at...
Yeah, you get a pretty good shot of that right there.
Yeah, there we go. There's the tube. And so he'll actually be at the con this year, and he'll be wrapping up our 25th Power Ranger anniversary.
Cool. Let's see. I know we have an author, J.L. Mulvihill. Is that how you say that?
Mulvihill.
Mulvihill, yeah. I didn't, the other day when I was scrolling through all this, I don't know if I made it down to but that, it's a neat thing too to get to meet authors, and it's a good opportunity, I guess, for people who enjoy reading different things and her to increase her audience. It's neat. It's kind of like a music snob that listens to bands that nobody's heard of yet.
Right.
And so it's neat to meet some of these authors. It's not like J.K. Rowling, like everybody knows who that is. So sometimes I guess a book snob could take some comfort in reading the people that aren't all the way out there yet, or that not many people read.
Right. Well, another interesting thing with having authors at the con is that, I mean, even if you don't know the author, you can strike a conversation with them, and when you're reading it, you're just like, I know this person.
Right.
And they signed my book.
And then when the time comes that they are bigger, then you say, hey, I met that person.
Right.
Got their autograph.